Hi, Wim Dijkgraaf here with a video for the Effortless Harmonica blog about the tone clock. Well, tone clock. It's not a name that I invented. Actually, the tone clock, in Dutch it's called the tone clock, almost the same. And I read an article in a paper 20 years ago when I studied composition in Holland at the conservatory. Composition of 20th century classical music. And there was an article in a magazine, not a paper, it was a magazine, about the composer Peter Schat. And Peter Schat used a graphical system based on the 12 hours of the clock and also based on the 10 triads that are possible in our tonal system. And that graphical representation he used to compose as a basis for his harmonies and melodies. And that's how the idea about the tone clock started for me. And in its simplest form, it's just a graphical way to represent chords and scales. And that's what I want to show you in this video presentation. So there we go. So why the tone clock could be of use for you? Well, it might be that you already know to read music and to write music in the normal musical notation, but somehow that musical notation system has also a historic background, and the system itself isn't. No, I'm gonna give you an example that's better. A lot of structures in music are symmetrical. And if you write them down in normal music notation, because the notational system isn't symmetrical itself, you don't see that symmetry in the music notation. So somehow the way you represent things influences the way you look at it. So it might be interesting to use another notation to figure out new ways to look at the same material, which can open new roads and new ways to look at it. It's the same with our instruments. Our instruments, the layout of our instrument is mainly based on what is physical possible and not related to how the music itself is constructed or built out of chords and scales. So our instruments, whenever it's a guitar or a keyboard, those structures have another background, so they don't help us so much as well. So the idea is that another way to represent things can open new ways to look at it. And that's how you could use the tone clock and how I already use it for about 20 years now. So what is it, the tone clock? Actually, it's based on the idea that a clock has 12 hours and our tone system has 12 different notes. So every hour can represent an individual note. Actually, there are two ways to divide the 12 tones over the hours, and one is chromatical, so you could start at C and then C sharp, D, D sharp. But because I like to use the circle a lot to explain harmonies, I like the circle of fourth, because then clockwise you see in tonal music that the root movement of jazz pieces. So that's why I use the circle of fourth. Another word for it is it's the circle of fifth. It's just the same interval, another direction. So if you go up a fourth or you go down a fifth from C, in both directions you end up on an F. So I prefer the circle of fourth. Well, for instance, if you want to represent a major scale, then that major scale is built up of 7 perfect fourths. and you see that the upper half of the clock is filled with notes, 7 notes from B to F. So that's a graphical representation of the 7 white keys of a piano keyboard, which is the major scale. Let's have a look at the black keys on a piano. The 5 black keys are below, and that's a pentatonic scale. A pentatonic scale is based on 5 perfect fourth, as you can see in this clock. For those who have a keyboard, just have a look, because the D and the A flat are the places where you can put a mirror and then the keyboard is symmetrical. So from those notes, as a point of reference, the keyboard is symmetrical too. That's also why I like to start on hour 12 with a D, because then you see that the black keys below, or the flats or the sharps, it's all horizontally symmetrical. Let's have a look at another scale, which is called the whole tone scale. The whole tone scale is as its name suggests, it's based on 6 whole tone intervals. And you see it's a beautiful symmetrical thing that you can turn clockwise or anti-clockwise just 1 hour. And if you turn it more than 1 hour, then you get the same scale again. So graphically now you can see that there are only 2 whole tone scales, and the other scales are the same group of notes, just starting from another note. Let's have a look not at a scale, but at a chord, a 7th chord, more specifically the diminished 7th chord, which is based on minor thirds only. So if you stack 4 minor thirds, then you have a diminished 7th chord. And here it is. It's a perfect square. And also, as you can see, you can turn it twice, and then the 3rd time or 4th time, depends on how you count, you get the same diminished 7th chord. So here you see with the 3 colors that there are only 3 different diminished 7th chords, and the rest are all based on the same notes. Let's have a look at a triad, the augmented triad, which is based on stacking 3 major third intervals. Also here, graphically represented, you see that there are 4 augmented triads, and that the other augmented triads are the same notes as before. And let's have a quick look at another one, the tritone, which divides the octave in 2 equal parts, and which is an essential interval for dominant 7th chords. I will create another video on that, specifically on dominant 7th chords. So here you have the tritone, and there are 6 of them, as you can see here. Yeah, so this is a first introduction in what I call the tone clock. I made 20 years ago sheets like this. This is a blank one. For me, whenever I want, I can draw something. Later, I used this representation to compose, and also to analyze compositions by others. Let me see, I found something here. Yeah, many years ago I did an analysis of Olivier Messiaen, a French composer, of his piece Quatuor pour le thème du temps, and just to show you some of the things that come out then. So instead of only using the musical notation, I prefer a lot to have this kind of representations that somehow helps me to discover new things that I can't discover so fast when I look at notes only. So that's it for now. I'm going to use this tone clock representation to explain about key centers. The key center is a concept to break down a jazz piece in just a couple of key centers, so you can start improvising not based solely on the chords, but on just a couple of major scales, which helps you a lot to choose the right notes. So that will be more on that in the next video. Hope you liked it, and hope to see you a lot on the Effortless Harmonica blog. Ciao!